Here's my thinking on a power steering pump. You know, you got this one in the back here. It is cam driven. They're saying just unbolt this and they put a block off plate out of a piece of aluminum. You know, right here it is. It's got these, just these two bolts right there. I can get that off there if we can see it. Yeah, right here. You got these two bolts, it just unbolts. That just takes all that jazz off there. You know, it looks like it's got a evap line for the purge solenoid or whatever that hangs off of that bracket. Anywho, you can take and unbolt that power steering pump off the back of that motor. That gives you a lot of room off the back side of that motor. Now, if you was to take that factory pump, drill and tap these holes to where you could bolt that factory pump off of the Chevy Colorado motor. You got two mounting spots here. You unbolt this bracket and you could bolt the bracket here. Here's a mounting spot. You would have to drill, you would have to tap that out. Tap that, and then you got these three holes. I think they're hanging them motors off them three holes. Or they're hanging it right back here. I'm putting that plate on there for 4 bolts. But you could use those 3 bolts, holes, tap that, and then you got 2 on the front. You hang that pump right off the side. Use your factory. You could actually probably take that and use those 3 spots if that will clear enough around that bolt. You know, once you take that out, if it'll go around that bolt, that crank bolt, and flip this, not this way, but flip it this way so the belt would be out from the front enough to clear everything. You know, you got a little bit of stuff to clear. You know, imagine it's right here and they give you plenty of room. That way you could use the factory style steering pump. I see these, you know, they're just taking a tap on some of those, or like even some of them are tapped already. I can't really find, I talked to a guy, he's like, I'm really not trying to take on a project like that. They only build front wheel, like, you know, they build race car parts for those motors. You can buy a power steering pump, but you lose the AC pump. I want the AC. Hopefully we can get it to work. But here's this factory style pump. And right there, factory pulley, it just bolts up with 3 bolts through the back side of this pump. It's got 3 little spots right there. You can see 3 little spots. You just have a bracket with a slot in it, and you can use your factory style power steering pump. That power steering pump just got to have a pulley that will turn, and you make a bracket on there with an idler and a way to come in from the side to push that belt to where it would just be tight. You could probably make a bracket to make that power steering pump work. And that keeps from having to butcher the truck up too. You know, you're not going to beat on the firewall or cut a hole out in it, because that stuff's right up against the firewall, everything. And, you know, to gut it down that far, we seen with the car what it would take. But I had to do that. You know, and we still may have to do that. We still may have to take and use that complete wiring harness. You know, it would suck to have to do all that. I think I can make it work with what I got. But, you know, sometimes you got to figure out the PCM, because it does control some things and it has to be powered off of some things. I don't know that to be 100% true. I mean, you could obviously just take all that crap out of there, and if you had enough circuits on one of those little cheap wiring harnesses with a little push-in fuse, and they sell relay box just for like headlights and crap like that. You just got to cut and splice and make it fit and chase down the right wire to get the power or whatever. that's one way I see of making the power steering pump work for what we got. Now, I do know a guy, they just put like these little dots all over it, and then they got a scanner, they'll scan it, and they can run it through a computer, and it will make you a bracket with the hose, and they would probably even make a custom-made pulley that would just be one piece. You know, that's the kind of stuff that they put together. It's pretty slick. You know, they would just, I'd say that's what they would do, tap that hole out. You got two brackets here on the side to hold it, but if it goes to where, when you know, if it was to start getting cracks in it, you'd probably have to come back here and grab two exhaust bolts to kind of hold it from the back side to keep from it wanting to do this. If it does that enough, it'll crack it. But that's my thinking. Could a person make that happen? I really think it's possible. Is he going to steal some power? Probably. But, you know, you're running off the cam for the other style motor. And I want power steering. I do have another Colorado, but I don't know. It's been sitting there for a long time, so might have to rub the gin the right way to get it out. And, you know, the guy said we had a trade, but be honest with you, you know, he had prostate cancer. We was supposed to do a trade, get another cab or another Chevy Malibu. He had one that was a little rotted, but you know, he had the title ready to go today, go to in his name to go down there and get it done. He backs out on a few deals. He's done me that way before, but you know, he changes his mind a lot, and he might have forgot about it. And you know, with his health problems, I mean, we're not promised tomorrow. It's been sitting there for, we did that deal probably 4 or 5 years ago. So, and it's up on the hill. You know what I mean? But that old boy that makes them parts now, he could take that truck and make you a brand new frame for it. Custom made frame, and you know, they do it right. I had one of his cars one time, and let me tell you right now, you got to respect that thing. I mean, when he puts something together, it's all the way. It's got the brakes, it's got all the good stuff to make it to where, you know, he's like, I guarantee you could probably put 100,000 miles on it and not even do nothing. I guarantee it. And then make it run off corn or whatever you want to run it off of. Pump gas. You know, reliable, pull in any old where and get what you need and go on. And the parts he puts on it, you know, he knows his parts. And I'm talking AC, heat, you know, all the beautiful things that make it happen. Reliable stuff. Z-rated tires. I mean, you got to be careful. You know, I hit the loud pedal on that, and he said, yeah, it's right, ain't it? I said, oh, it's right. It gets you hurt. It's right. It's so right that it'll get you hurt. You know, he makes all-wheel drive stuff and everything, but he's got a little scan tool. You know, they just put little dots on them for reference points, and they'll scan that block and put it into a 3D model on the computer, and can tell you precisely how it, you know, the computer does all the measuring, and it'll just lay me out a piece of metal, and this is how you put it together, kind of thing. So I think that would work. Matter of fact, I know it would work. If I could go down there and talk to the old timer about taking that pulley and making that pulley fit on it, or make an adapter that'll fit onto this pulley with bolts that you could cut the center out of that or something. He made me a set of spindles. I took a set of rocket spindles off of a dirt car and took a 94 S10 spindle down there. He pushed the center out of the back of that spindle, made a sleeve after he cut the spindle in off of a rocket spindle, and press fitted it inside of that so I could have a 94 5-lug Chevy bolt pattern all the way around on my Mazda Protege. I know he can do it. But, you know, like I say, he's getting a lot older. I'm in no hurry. But, you know, you would have to figure out the bracket once you got the pulley mounted up to that pulley there. Take 2 pulleys. Like I say, if you could take and... He might just cut that whole center out of it and just make a piece that will bolt up to this and just press fit it on to the piece that would bolt up to that. Just tap those bolts, those 3 bolts. Tap those out with a tap and just bolt one to the other, and then you'd have to make a bracket. That's a lot, but it's doable. I haven't found nothing yet that's just like ready to go, other than taking off that AC compressor. It's on like $250 ready to go, but it only hooks up to like a sweet steering rack, like, you know, race car stuff, or a HDR. I don't know what that would be, but I want to keep the AC. You can run AC that's 12 volt and stuff like that, but, you know, it involves doing a lot of different stuff, you know. And to have enough voltage to run it, that people have problems out of it. It works, but it takes a lot of power, you know, an extra, like maybe 2 alternators. And, you know, it's a lot more, you know, have a bracket off there with a couple alternators hanging off of it or something. You know, it's a lot. I would just, you know, staying with our theme, factory parts. All you got to do is get that pump mounted in there some way with a pulley, and you can make it happen. A big crank pulley. Use the same size crank pulley you got, same size pulley you got on your power steering pump. You just have to have a way where you can just slide it down in there, bolt it up from through the pulley, and then have a belt that you can tighten up. It would work. Would that be something you could slap together pretty quick? I guess it all depends on the person, really. But to involve the machine shop, that pulley, it just goes on there, you know. You just press it down on there and that's it. I don't know how this pulley comes off, but this one don't have a keyway or nothing on it, you know. It just kind of, you got to have a tool to where it just press fits on. It just slides, it's so tight on the crankshaft that it won't spin. So, and it's got to be deep enough in there or it will leak out of the front cover. I've had to do it before. It's hard. It's hard to get it to go. It takes the tool to get it off and get it on. So, we would have to have the tool to get it off, and then figure out what it would take to get that one off, and then tell him my idea. I know he could do it, but, you know, like I said, he's getting a lot older, and he just don't feel like doing much. He'd take a little project on here and there. He's afraid somebody get hurt sometimes, too. He's like, now, you're not going to go out and get hurt, are you, now? You know, I had to... he actually got mad at me when I had somebody else do me a different set of wheels. He's like, your rim, they named the wheel. I said, all I want you to do is cut the welds out of the wheel, and then take the 2 halves and slick it, put it in a lathe, cut the edges off to where they're perfectly true, put them back together, weld them up solid, and then put the center back in there and weld it. I used to have, I think it was Cox Auto Parts, when they had a machine shop. My grandpa used to go up there and have wheels made. They would do magnesium, whatever kind of wheel, buddy. They could do it. Drop them off, tell you what you want. Oh yeah, well, come back here in a couple of days. I'll have it done, buddy. Yeah, this is what I want. You know, they agree on a price, and they call you up when it's done. Hey, come get this. Yeah, it's like, man, that's only been there for like 4 hours. Yeah, well, it's done. Come get it. I want my money today. Let's go. So, they did do stuff like that. They did machining for motors, and you could have the blocks flux. We took and dropped a bunch of stuff off our... Always did this real good. Warranted everything. You know, if there was a problem with it and it was their problem, they would make it right. So... But they quit doing that stuff. They shut the machine shop down. I guess that old boy that took care of them real good there, he passed away or something. So, but he was good. And it wasn't nothing that was just like, oh, is that what you want? Okay, I'll do that. You know, but we talking today or when you need it? So he was pretty good. But I'm gonna get out here this evening. We're going to try to finish up the welding on this. And then the bolts should be in today. We'll go ahead and put our bolts, get our motor plate bolted all the way together. And I'm really not going to drop that in there until we can get a 3-bolt little deal for this side. I'll take some of that round stock, stick it out there. However, we got to get it done, and then make a plate for the outside so we can, I still got to clean up the frame rails with a grinder on the inside of these frame rails. We get those cleaned up. Once we get those cleaned up, we can, I don't know, it'll probably be another 2-3 days, and then all we got to do is get this motor. I got to take that power steering pump off the back of that motor. Need to make a plate to where I can just put some silicone on it and put 2 bolts in it, use the same bolts, cap it off. I think somebody was even saying take the camshaft out, cut the back of the camshaft off and put it back in, and just put a plate over it. There's a guy building a rail buggy with one of them motors. He said, yeah, I'm just trying to figure out a different way to do the power steering. His power steering pump was electric that he had hooked up. So he said it's like 12 volt or 24 volt, had to have some kind of transformer to turn it into whatever he needed. Whatever the situation was, he said he didn't want that power steering pump on that motor. And he had a different way of using a power steering pump. Now, if I can talk to old boy and, you know, get this pulley off, take that pulley off too, and then say, hey, can you make these 2 on there? That pulley sticking out, that'll give us, don't matter. We get that pulley on there, and whatever, we're good. I could go get that manual power steering and stick on here, and until we could figure out a way to get all that hooked up. You know, all I got to do is get a belt to it, get a bracket made to where it could hold the pump, and get a belt that we can tighten up from the crank to that pulley. And now, will that work? Will it be enough? I don't know. You might have to play with the pulley sizes on the pump, but I think it should work. You know, the way they got the, sometimes you got to make it smaller to make it spin fast enough to work. But if you use 2 factory pulleys, I think it should work. And then it's got a, that bracket right there, I was looking at it, it almost looks like it'll unbolt. And you could bolt it up there. That would give you your bracket for your pump. And then you could make some brackets to kind of tie it in. But you just need a pulley to the front of this crank pulley. I'm going to look at it. But if you look at it, I was looking at it a little bit. But the way it goes on, look. It's 3 bolts. Right there it is. 3 whole bolts. 4 bolts. And it's already got your tensioner on it. Right there's your tensioner. Right here's where the bolt, the pump bolts up to it at. So, you might be able to take that right there. It's got 3 bolts almost the same way right here on that, on the bottom of that. I mean, you could hang it off the bottom if you have enough room. Let's be honest. It's just got to be in the upright position so you can get the cap on and off on it. Or make a bracket to where you could bolt 2 here, 1 here, come over here, grab that, and then take that bracket and just stick it up there, put your bracket up there, drill a hole in some metal, put your nut to the back of it, bolt that bracket up. And that would give you a belt tensioner, and you've already got your bracket for your pump. It would go right together. You just got to have it out far enough in line with that pulley to make it work. So a guy might be able to take and machine all that off. You just put it in a lathe and cut all that off, cut the center of it out, put a plate on there, drill your 3 holes in it, or get the spots for the 3 pieces, and for the crank pulley, you get that pulley on there. I mean, you already got 1 bracket. It just needs to be able to get up there and get in a position with a belt that would work. A short enough belt. Figure out a way to get all the tension out of the belt and make it tight. So, got a lot of ideas, but to talk to people, they're just like, not interested. Not interested in something like that. No kind of hot rod. They just build race cars. So, they're not interested. We'll see what we can get done.